When it comes to coaching, many people think, is there any way where coaching can be right or can be wrong? Because certainly anyone out there is a coach, and often people wonder, is there any system, anything out there where I might connect to, where I might think this can be worth my money, my time, my efforts? And we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Scott Abbott.
Hi, Niels. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for taking the time, and we get straight into the topic. You invented a system called Boss Up. Can you tell us a bit more? What's your story behind that? How did you get into coaching? How did you find the system? What's your career? What have you done before you became a coach? Because as we all know, there are lots of people out there who suddenly call themselves coaches,
Yeah.
and some of them have, let's say, debatable track records. And I know that you're better than that, so I'm looking forward to hearing what's your story.
Yeah, well, thanks. First and foremost, I don't want to take credit that I invented it per se. As an entrepreneur myself, I think I brought together what I like to call the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines to build, run, and scale a great company, thanks to much smarter people than me. Some of the classics like Good to Great, Jim Collins, and Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And Gino Wickman wrote a book called Traction. Plus, you got some of their forefathers, Drucker, Deming, Porter. So there's a lot, smart people out there that I was able to leverage with my previous experience as a founder, CEO of both small and big companies, largest being a multi-billion dollar firm of a $32 billion entity. And frankly, Niels, over the almost 40 years I've been in business, I've worked with some of the biggest consultancies and systems implementation companies. And I genuinely felt that there was more of a we need to fit them versus they fit us. I also
Hmm.
believe historically it's been quite expensive and non-accessible. And then last but not least, it really kind of is a one size fits all. So when we
Yeah.
launched Boss Up in partnerships with our software partner 90, 90 is a cloud-based platform to help companies focus, align, and thrive. So about 3 years ago, launched Boss Up after, again, 25, 30 years in consulting and systems to build what we believe is the most modern, flexible, and inclusive way to help startup, small, and mid-market companies, along with the coaches that work with us, learn, implement, and benefit from what we call the 9 core competencies. And
Hmm.
so we've got a programmatic, scalable, customizable way to, again, help the coaches and their clients implement a tailored business operating system to meet them where they're at and take them to where they want to go. So it's about them, not about us.
Excellent, because I mean, I've seen you work. I mean, VP Sales and Marketing for DPS. You worked for IBM. You worked for all the big brands. I mean, let's face it, you could easily have stayed there for the next 20 years, had a relaxed life with all the corporation background you have there, and suddenly you decided to start this. So when people now say, okay, you just talked about the nine different aspects, and because many coaches say, hey, I get approached by systems that should be a fit for me, as they claim, basically on a weekly basis. What distinguishes what you do here from other systems?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think we're uh, number one. We really do believe that a good system should actually be a solution, and to be a solution, you need to respect where that company has been, where they're at, where they want to go. One size we don't believe fits all. All systems, very honestly, Neil, are imperfect because by default they're they don't know who you are, right? The books, right? Until you make them yours, they're just words on a paper or a framework or a template. So number one, we are all about configuring, customizing, and tailoring what we call, again, the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines, keeping it simple, keeping it clear, keeping it concise, but meeting them, aka the clients and the coaches, where they're at. And I think that's unique. Second, I said earlier, accessible, affordable, inclusive. And when I say inclusive, we're a fan of integrating other concepts and frameworks and templates so we don't claim to have all the answers. And for the
Very
coaches,
good.
I think the cool thing is we have what we call the Coaching Solution Academy, an online portal, a learning management
Hmm.
system. And so we're able to go in, and we talked before we got on about being here in Indianapolis and race cars. And I'm a big race fan, F1 and Indy. I kind of like to think of it like the engineering and the mechanics, the car itself. And then we've also got what we would call the soft skills, the mindset, leadership, the attributes to help people just be more confident and comfortable, how they collaborate, how they communicate, how they learn and grow. And we kind of fuse the head and the heart systems and soul, profit and purpose together in a way that we're told is pretty cool and unique.
Brilliant. And of course, now a very important question. What's in for the client? So when clients now say, hey, what is in for me when someone says, I am using this? Okay, I am the client, and as a client, I probably have a problem. I want to have a solution. I don't care what you do. So, but when you
Yeah.
use some sort of system behind that, I might think you may be a bit more expensive than someone who just goes freelance and say, I'm a coach. So why should I pay more for that?
Yeah, again, meet them where they're at. So again, we emphasize what we call the 9 core competencies, and it's everything from vision to values to structure and alignment, your goals, your data, how you process and report and manage and measure. But inevitably, that company, aka the client, already has a lot of that in place, maybe. And so if they've already done a boatload of work and they don't need that extra level of coaching or consulting or advice, why charge them and why should they pay for it? So through lightweight assessments and analysis, we can literally say, okay, which of the 5 stages are you as a company? And stage 1 is different than stage 3. And so if you're stage 3 and it's really about good to great versus
Hmm.
I've got chaos and disorder and I'm all messed up, right? And so I think a lot of systems sort of almost have this passive aggressive way of saying, hey, you kind of stink today, so get out of that. No, I don't think so. I think most organizations are pretty good.
Hmm.
I think ultimately a good coach consultant respects that there's momentum already in place. They want to keep that, and then they want to drive progress and do both at the same time. So it's all about the client configuring a solution that meets them where they're at and tuck in the right tools, concepts, and disciplines that they need, not that, we dictate, if you will.
Excellent. So it's an adaptive system. So no matter where someone stands, they can be sure that when they say, "Hey, I think we're doing pretty well here, but not in this scenario," you
Yeah.
adapt to the stage where they're at instead of telling them, "Okay, this is all nonsense. You have to start from scratch because my system tells you so."
Yeah, right. Well, and then we've got guidebooks. So we effectively have 3 programs. One's called Starter, the other one's Builder, the other one's Scaler. And it's kind of like, silver, gold, platinum,
Yeah.
if you will. And so through the coach's assistance and the guidebooks in a visual, almost edutaining way, they can sit there and say, okay, let's diagnose where are we at, right? And if we don't need something, we don't need something, right? If we just need to, back to the car metaphor, right? Put in, a new set of tires, and maybe we want to recalibrate the way we're aligned and put on some tinted windows and just make it look cooler because it's
Hmm.
about culture and the taste and the touch and the feel, not necessarily the production. Production's good, but we don't have the enterprise value we want because we don't have other parts. So let's focus on that. You follow me? So
Yeah,
it's again, it's
absolutely.
tailorable, it's configurable, meets them where they're at. And again, the cool thing is, if I may, that logic and return on asset and investment applies for both the coach and the actual end user of the system.
Brilliant. And talking about books, because you just wrote a book, Boss Up Moments. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so just show it here. So Boss
By
Up,
coincidence, you have it here. By
yeah.
coincidence, you
Well,
have
who's
it.
an author who doesn't have their books hanging around, right? So
Of
Boss
course.
Up, this is again back to the concept of the chassis, the engineering, the mechanics. That's what Boss Up Blue is all about, right? The purpose, cause, rhyme, and reason for having a tailored business operating system, layering in an intelligent, practical use of AI, and then coaching. And not just because you're working with a coach, but ultimately we want the clients to coach themselves, a
Hmm.
coach's mindset, right? And so that's the engineering, the structure, the mechanics. This is more of what I call the soft skills. So inside Boss Up Moments called Catalyst, volume 2 is coming out in a couple of few months. This is volume 1. We've got 40 moments. And really, this is more about emotional intelligence and the psychology and the sociology. So we were talking before we got on the camera. There's a lot of dynamics in the world today. There's a lot of people that are having, difficulty dealing with conflict and resiliency, setting boundaries, having healthy win-win relationships, right? Overcoming, their natural tendencies to procrastinate and get anxious. And that's what
Hmm.
this book is all about. And so we've got basically 4 cool elements. Number 1 is a QR code to a video. So there's also a 4.5 minute video that they can watch on YouTube. Then we have a lightweight written insight into what is, the ultimate goal, results, and reasons for setting good boundaries or being coachable. You with me? Then we have these gems, and then last but not least, pretty cool, is journaling. journaling and the 5 prompts that they could use in their life, they could use for one-on-one coaching, they could use for team building. So really the whole concept here is this is career-centric life skills that transcends business and goes into their individual lives as well. So they can take it home, they could use it for weekend journaling, or they could keep it in the office, in the boardroom, and help with leadership and management and teamwork. That's the whole concept here.
Brilliant. And of course, now I have to ask, when someone is now listening and they say, I think this might be something for me. The main question, of course, is how can they get in touch? How can they join? What are the options they have on the table here?
Yeah, this thing called the internet.
No way. So there we are.
We've got a website, but we do encourage people to use AI and search. Don't just take our word for it. We've got some pretty substantiated reviews and a lot of folks out there saying good things, so we appreciate that. But if you go to bossup.work or bossup.coach or bossup.academy, effectively, we try to showcase the solution that the companies can use, the way the coaches can integrate and tuck in Boss Up to complement their practice if they're already consulting or they're coaching or advising. This is kind of a tuck in, right? A complement to what they're already doing. And then last but not least is our academy. Our academy is a learning management system. We've got hundreds of hours of training. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of proven project-based templates and frameworks and tools that just help the coach get really comfortable with the solution and not only to implement the solution, but also help them in their coaching practice from a growth, a business development standpoint. So we've got this wonderful blend of, again, actual in-market solution for the companies, a solution for the coaches, and that's all done in this online learning and development system we call the Academy.
I think these are the perfect final words. Coaching, you see, when it's done right and professionally, it can lead to much value and value contribution to your organization and to you personally. At the end of this podcast and videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Scott, thank you very much for your time.
Niels, thank you. Thanks everybody out there.